Welcome to another podcast. I'm your host, Ollie Matthews, and today is such an awesome guest that we have. The work he does has truly changed my life. It's a guy called John Norman, who's a pastor at Soul Church.
Has there been any times when you have had to question your faith?
Yeah. We go into what it means to just get things out there rather than worrying about being perfect all the time.
I don't think this is something you deal with once. I think some of these are weekly, even daily battles that we face.
Fear, rejection, shame, guilt, perfectionism. Which one for you was probably the most important to unmask?
As a pastor, you might have it all together, as a leader, a chaplain, all these titles we get given, but actually the reality is,
if you are just looking to improve as a man, as a leader, as a husband, as a brother, as a son, I highly recommend you taking the time to listen to this podcast. Enough of the chit chat, let's get on with the show.
Hey guys, welcome to another podcast here. I'm excited with this one. I can actually say, since I've met this guy, hopefully your head doesn't get too big, my life has dramatically changed, but we'll get into the reasons why, because I'm pretty certain you'll say it's not you, it's someone else going on. But I've got John Norman here. And John, I really do appreciate you for taking the time out here and being in person with this one. You're a busy guy, especially even more so with a new build coming along. Just tell the guys a little bit about who is John Norman. Like, if you had an origin story, I'm not going to ask who would play you.
Yeah.
But where would it begin?
Well, first of all, thank you, Ollie, for having the privilege to be part of the podcast and be on the show. It really is an honour, and I've been inspired by some of your work as well. I've just only connected over the last few months, but sort of zoomed in and read some of your book, and my wife's read some of the book as well. It's really helped us. I want to say, first of all, thank you. I believe in what you do and what you stand for, and looking forward to what you can impart into our community as well. It's not all about us, it's about together, collaboratively, I believe we can make the world a much better place. So it really is a privilege to be here today. And I hope it helps someone. I hope, even if I say just one little thing, a little nugget that helps someone maybe make a better choice, that for me is a real positive step forward. So yeah, a little bit about me. I'm a Norwich lad.
Yeah.
Went to Taberham High School, Taberham Middle School, Taberham First.
So we were rivals with me being in Helston.
That's right.
The hockey matches were brutal.
Yeah, we always used to beat you.
Well,
I don't think I was in your year. I might have been a couple of years.
There's a couple of years between us.
So yeah, local lad. Went to Australia when I was 22. To college, which is where I met my wife, Chantel, who was originally from Los Angeles, California. So our worlds collided.
Is amazing as well, right?
That's pretty cool. Our worlds collided. And we then moved back to the UK, got married in 2006. And then we took a big step and moved down to Cape Town, South Africa, to be part of a church set up there. And spent the next 6 or 7 years of our lives there before moving back up to London in 2013 and started Soul Church 2014.
Yep.
Which is about to be, next year's 10 years old. So been around 10 years. So,
tell the people about Soul Church a little bit. I want to go into a little bit other things before we talk on the church. But if I just briefly say about how I found Soul, purely because of the fact that if you'd have told me back in February that I'd be going to church week in, week out, my back would have been up, because I was a very spiritual guy. I believed in something, but I didn't know what it was.
Yeah,
and we had the conversation about how my training partner, Luke Brendan, came back to Norwich. We said I'd not seen him for years, and said, let's grab a coffee. He was training the next day. 3 months later, I'm in church.
Wow.
And I truly feel if it was what people think of a church as, the traditional side of things,
sure,
I wouldn't be going. It's a different, non-judgmental piano to me.
Yeah.
And it's been powerful. But what would you describe what Soul Church is?
First of all, Soul Church is a community that loves God and loves people. So if you had to kind of boil it down, and what is it? We love God, and we love others. And so we have this exactly the same, belief system as the church on the corner, the traditional church on the corner, but the methods are very different. So I always say the message is the same, the methods are different. If we played football like we did in the 1950s, 60s with a big heavy leather ball and the kits sort of baggy, I think it wouldn't necessarily be buying into this generation. So what we've done is we've just adapted the methods, but kept the message the same. So the same Bible that we read in Soul Church, exactly the same Bible they read in the cathedral, but just maybe the methods are different. And it's not to say we're better, worse than anyone else. It's just that we just feel that the gospel should be contemporary, but the message should stay exactly in its original form.
That's powerful. And when we go there, I say to some people, I've had people say to me, why are you going there? Why are you doing this, that? And a lot of times, if you took the name God out, if you took Jesus out, people would be open to these stories and learn from them. But when you put that in, there's this backup straight away. But have you, because you're the chaplain for Norwich City.
Yeah.
Are you finding anything, obviously we can't go into the stories with specific players, but do you find any players like have their back up a little bit, aren't as open to support when you go there? What is it you actually do when you go there?
Yeah, well, my job at Norwich is to support the players, the coaches, the staff, the groundsmen, anyone, if they go, maybe they're going for a loss of a loved one, a grandparent, a parent, the job of the chaplain is to be there to offer care, support. I'm not a counsellor. I'm there for people that are good times, I'm there for people that are not so good. I don't get involved in football. I think the misconception is the chaplain gets involved. I have nothing to do with football. I love football. I love the Canaries, but I've actually, tactically, that's not my speciality. So I keep away from football. I just focus on them as humans. Just because they maybe have a higher salary than most people, the reality is they go for a lot of the same challenges, rejection, some of the challenges in the world, the battles with social media, there's all sorts of things that footballers go through. And so my role at the club is just to offer support, offer some perspective from time. And, and if they want some spiritual help, support, then that's there, but that's never forced on them. A lot of them might have grown up. We've got players from South America, from Africa, from, players who've grown up in that. And so maybe they need just a signpost into a church, to a community. That's, we're there for them.
Have you found, I speak to a lot of guys, and one of the things I've noticed working with men and women is that us guys struggle to ask for help.
Yeah.
Do you find it more so with players, or is it just a guy thing?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a guy thing. But I think when people need help, I've had lots of opportunities to help footballers and staff, and be there. And so for me, that's a privilege to be there for them. Often, we just see them on camera, we see them on television, we see them maybe driving their car and everything looks, picture perfect. But that's not the reality, because life's not like that. It doesn't matter how much money you get paid. People still die in your world. People still get ill. We all battle these things. And so for me, it's like, how can I offer them the best level of support, encouragement? And, we don't see their private battles. We don't see the abuse that they receive on social media. We don't see all those things. And, rejection, pain, we all take that personally. And so for me, I'm like, I can maybe just help them through that season.
I definitely had to take what your message was in church on Sunday about not taking the emotions of football home.
Yes.
Being a Norwich City season ticket holder, I'm now about to get grief because I'm a Man United fan. And what happened on Sunday, that weekend wasn't great.
It wasn't a great weekend.
It was right, let's just check in again. 5 minutes later, I was, okay. So I think we ended up watching The Chosen. So that kind of helped flip it the other way. You've got your book, Unmasked. And if no one's read this book, or if people haven't read this book, check it out. I was lucky enough to read it on holiday, and it definitely got me thinking. But the topics you unmask: fear, rejection, shame, guilt, perfectionism, insecurity, anxiety, inferiority, disappointment, sin. Which one do you think for you was probably the most important to unmask?
Well, first of all, Unmasked came in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
Because I was just seeing everyone wearing physical masks. And I realized that actually, this isn't a political book at all, by the way. So don't send me emails about masks. So we'll wait past. This is all about the invisible masks that we wear. And so I decided to write a book, not about everyone else's masks, but about my masks. The masks that, like you just said, rejection, guilt, shame, some of these disappointments, some of these masks that we wear, and we just try and mask over them. And it was actually it was a deep dive into my soul. Mm-hmm. And it was actually, as a pastor, you might have it all together, as a leader, a chaplain, all these titles we get given. But actually, the reality is, man, I struggle with rejection. I struggle with disappointment. I struggle with some of these things, and it doesn't matter what your title is, we're all prone to them. So I wanted to write a book that I believe could help an everyday person. Doesn't matter whether you're a Christian, doesn't matter whether you're what faith you are, no faith, agnostic, atheist, doesn't matter. I want to write a book to actually go, take the Jesus bit out of it if you don't want that. Actually, can I help you identify some of these masks? So for me, they were all big masks. I think perfectionism was a big one for me.
Yeah.
I like things perfect. I think, go to a restaurant, I like everything, the experience, the service, the food, menu. I don't mind paying a lot of money for a meal, but I want a perfect experience.
Yeah.
The problem is, whether it's a holiday, a meal, very rarely does my expectation get met. And so then I feel almost this like disappointment. And so I've had to deal with perfectionism. I've had to understand where that comes from, what that's rooted in. And I unpack that. You can grab a hold of the book on Amazon, but I unpack more of what that is. And it's something that I don't think this is something you deal with once. I think some of these are weekly, even daily battles that we face. But actually to realize that no one's perfect, starting with me. And that people will never meet my expectations, and I'll probably never meet their expectations. But actually, that's okay. We've just got to find the good in people. We've just got to find the good in the moment, the good in the day. And, even with the new building, we're building a new soul church. Some of you just seen that going up on Heartsease Lane, opposite the Open Academy. And I want it perfect. But it's not perfect because it's built by me and I'm not perfect. And so I think I talk more about all these things, but perfectionism is a deal. Shame, if I'm honest, was a big chapter.
Yeah.
It's a big chapter because often we make decisions especially in our youthful years that we have to live with in our senior years.
Yeah.
Whether that's in relationships, whether that's in finances, whether that, you need to take a credit card out when you're 18, it's all fun and games, swiping it, and then suddenly you get the bill and like, I can't deal with that. And then you can end up living with this whole mask of shame. So actually unpacking that, what does that look like? How do I deal with it? And how can I walk free from it?
That's powerful. I actually had the conversation again when I was training this morning, and we were talking about shame. And coming into church actually was part of, there's a BC version of me.
Yeah.
And like the person who wrote this book,
sure,
I was going to edit it and then think, well, there's some swearing in there, and there's some songs about like all that stuff, like,
yeah.
And it's just like, there is like, and just recognizing there's a before Christ version.
Yeah.
So that I've got this podcast has kind of morphed from a couple of different podcasts. I'm still on the same feed.
Yeah.
But I want to put some throwback episodes out, but they're going to be BC episodes.
Yeah.
And it's that those experiences, yes, there might be some potential shameful things that if people, like we saw with Kevin Hart last year, it was last year, 2 years ago now, time's flying, but how people dig up the past.
Yeah.
And the more exposure you get,
the
more chance of that happening.
Yeah.
Have you had to kind of adapt in anything? Has something kind of thrown you off where you've had to just pivot quickly?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I think we're all aware now that, this podcast in 20 years, I might say something that could be offensive.
Yeah.
Right. In today's world, what I'm saying might be like, okay, but in 20 years, something I've said could be taken out of context in 20 years or even in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So we're all living under that narrative. So I think we have to be extra on our guard on some of these things. So even on a Sunday, I've got to be careful because just because you're sitting in the room and you understand the context, the environment, if something's clipped, so that can actually cause you to live in fear.
Yeah.
It can actually cause you to live in fear. And then you get to a point where it's just not worth it. But to be honest, I've kind of moved past it. And if, cancel culture, sometimes it's good. Like some things need to be canceled. There's extremists out there. They need to be canceled. But, people, I just think we have to get to a point where we can agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Like in this crazy world, I totally don't agree, but I'm not going to cancel you because there could be some good in what you're saying. There could be some good. And we're never all going to agree on the same things. But for me, as a church, we made a stance. We're not political.
Yeah.
We're not political as a church. My job is to share about Jesus, his love, his kindness, his compassion towards people. And so, that's just a stance we've taken as a church. We're not here to tell people how to vote, what to vote for. It's, there are things we have to address from time to time, but our job is to keep a focus firmly on Jesus.
Hey, I just want to give a shout out to one of the show sponsors, Human Tonic, and their formula Reds is something that I use regularly, not just with myself, with clients all over. I deal with a lot of people that get brain fog, that have poor circulation, have cold hands and feet, and the actual beets in this, in fact, this is one of the few products that you're actually going to find 5 grams of beetroot per serving. And I've recommended actually increasing beetroot intake, increasing supplementation with beetroot, and actually having this Reds drink is going to help you promote your circulation. It's going to help you promote antioxidant exposure to reduce free radical damage from the life that we live, and it's going to help you with your endurance, not just physically but mentally as well. So go over to Human Tonic, pop in the code OM15, and you will get your discount to get your circulation moving and your health going in the right direction right away.
As you know, I've just dived in head first with the community itself. And, because having that community is part of help one. And like we talk about that, if you've not got this community, this sense of being, there's a whole 2 sections in one of my onboarding questionnaires that is all about eudaimonic well-being. Like, do you feel like you feel fulfilling life's purpose? Are you part of a community? Do you feel like you're understood and these sorts of things? And if someone scores really low on that, then I get them to do this questionnaire before they've signed up, because they probably need some sort of other therapy. But the community, as I said, at its soul, has been powerful. Now, has there been anyone that has come to you and said, look, John, I want to believe, but something's stopping me? Have you, either from a story from the Bible, in fact, a story from the Bible and something you've physically seen happen that just literally made them do a 180 and go from non-believer to follower?
Yeah, I've seen both sides. I think you hit the nail on the head there when you talked about purpose and community. I think a lot of people are, it was Mother Teresa that said loneliness is the worst form of poverty. It's a powerful statement. We live in a very lonely world. People are alone. People, especially post-COVID, people have been separated so much. So I think Soul Church and other churches in this fine city, they offer a place where you can belong. And I wanted to say this: you do not have to belong to believe. Okay? You can belong in Soul Church and not believe. And we have people who come on Soul Church and they do not believe. My job is not to make you believe or force you to believe. Or even, my job is to point you to community. Now, the focal point of that community is Jesus. The cross. And in that, and so often transformation happens over a period of time. So when people often say, prove God is real, it's like you, Ollie. Well, if I didn't know you, BC, as you described it, but if I'd have known you, say, 5 years ago, when maybe you weren't in the place you're at now.
I was angry at the start of the pandemic, so even then.
Angry. Right? You're angry, maybe some relational challenges, friendship, all the various things that you've been through. But now you've come into the Soul Church community, you've had an encounter with faith, with Jesus, and your life is different. So if people knew you before and now they know you now, it's very hard for them to argue because you've personally experienced what Jesus can do in your life. And yes, there's miracles in the Bible where Jesus turned the water into wine and Jesus fed the 5,000 with a few loaves and fishes, if you're familiar with those stories. And there are miracles that happen today. But the greatest miracles are when people's lives are transformed, but transformation just off. It's like in a gym. If we go to the gym today, Ollie, you work me hard. I'll go home. I might feel really tired, but nothing really is going to change if I don't go back to the gym on Friday or Saturday. But if you work me out consistently, maybe for 3 months, things are going to change. And I think that's the same with anything. With faith, you practice it, and you pray, and you read your Bible, and you do the things that Jesus encourages to do, and then you look back and think, how far have I come? And suddenly other people see it, like, wow, something different about Ollie, something different about Hannah, something different about Susan. There's just something different, and it's over a period of time. So one of the greatest privileges as a pastor is to watch people grow. is to watch people's lives move forward. That's why I do what I do. I do it because I'm so passionate about seeing people's lives changed.
When I talk about stories here, I always mention my wife that when Laura went there the first time, that was when you were away. I think, was it Damien, someone they'd done someone from America. So then I remember Luke saying he's totally different tomorrow or next week, sorry. And that was what's the week before Easter? The Sunday.
Build up, yeah, Good Friday or
the Sunday one.
The Sunday before Easter, yeah.
And she didn't come to that one, and she said, "You're not going to go every week, are you?" And I said, "I'm not sure. But if I feel,
yeah,
I'm very much in tune with people's energy.
Sure.
And if I go into a place and there's loads of negative vibes,
yeah,
I don't want to spend a lot of time there.
Yeah, like me. Yeah.
But when you go into the auditorium, and there's people going through so much stuff, but they're there to build each other up. Like, we're not there to tear each other down. And then I see Laura's now volunteering and going every week and all these sorts of things. And when we're going away, then Julie wanting to watch the catch up, and it's just an amazing shift. But even in this short period of time, 6 months as such, there's been questions of, is this the right thing? Has there been any time, or had there been any times when you have had to question your faith?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think you do question faith because we're putting our trust in something we physically can't necessarily see, and that's difficult in this day and age where we work through logic. Logic says X plus Y equals Z, but faith doesn't always work out like that. So faith is we're trusting in an almighty God who is with us, but we can't see. So the only way I can describe, people say, well, how do you know is God's real? It's because of the evidence I see all around me. I see it in you, Ollie. I see it in Laura. I go, okay, well, what were their lives like before they met Jesus? What was their life? You know, we help run a drug rehabilitation center called Teen Challenge.
Yeah.
We partner with them, and these guys come in and they have an encounter with Jesus on this program, and their lives are never the same again. And so it's very hard to argue against someone's story. You can argue, we call it theology, which is like the scriptures and Bible, and people can say God isn't real, God is real. But when you actually show someone's life that turned around after they encountered Jesus, it's very, very difficult to go, no, it isn't.
Yeah.
Because you can see the evidence in front of you. So like you said, on a Sunday, you know, when people walk out of Soul Church and they've had that encounter with Jesus, things change. It's like their situation hasn't changed, but they've changed. Yeah. And when you've changed, you can then go and change your situation. So you might walk in flat on a Sunday, and sometimes I even do it, I'm running the place. You walk in flat, you walk in disheartened, and we talked about on Sunday, discouragement, walk in discouraged. But then you get around people, you start singing and worshiping God, and then someone brings a life-changing message from the Bible, and suddenly you leave going, I can make it.
Yeah.
Now your situation, your debt might not have changed, your situation with your marriage, but suddenly feels like you've got some energy, you've got some courage to actually go and make some positive changes. And so for me, that's the difference.
I suppose that whole believe, and then you'll see.
Yeah.
But even when we're going through trials and tribulations, you have to believe you can get through it.
You've got to believe.
I've got a picture of Everest, and it's like a chapter in my book about using Everest, that you have to believe you can get to the summit, but also down safely as well.
Yes.
And if you're not going to believe that, why bother? First off, it's expensive.
Yeah.
You can just try these things over and over again. And I talk about that with health. Why bother keep doing these things if you don't actually believe that you can do it?
Sure.
If you don't have faith in it.
Yeah.
It's powerful when you start to see the changes. Now, Soul isn't just a church. There's other areas to it.
Correct,
as well.
Yeah.
What other areas are there with Soul?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges with what people perceive church is just a gathering of people on a Sunday. And that is definitely part of it, the worship experience. I believe that church should make a difference in the community. Church should make a difference in our world. And so we have local initiatives and global initiatives. So some of those local initiatives are, we have a social supermarket, like a food bank, just a different name. And people come 5 days a week and they access really, really reduce food. £3 for a big carry bag of food, and that, fresh chicken, cleaning products if they need them. And so we have that on site at church.
It always surprised how much of a queue there is out.
There's always a queue
for it to open.
On the way here to record, there's a queue, and it first of all, it shows the need in our city.
Yeah,
it shows that people are, with the energy hikes and all the various challenges, financially, mortgage rate increases. It's difficult for people, and so we're able to help people. And I think that is the mandate of the church. We should be able to help it. Doesn't matter what religion they are. Doesn't matter what they believe. None of those things matter. Jesus came to earth to help people. And, I hate poverty, but I love the poor. And I would love to see poverty eradicated from this city. I don't know how we'd ever do that, but imagine if everybody helped someone, everybody would be helped.
I think as well, one thing that I've kind of changed my view on over the last few years is when you see people that are homeless, is that they've done something wrong.
Yes.
Or they're in the wrong and all these sins. And actually, if you go and maybe give them something, you start speaking to them, they've just been dealt a bit of a bad card. They've made a mistake.
Yeah.
They're doing something that they may be trying to get up for it, and maybe it's just a difficult chapter in their life. And I sometimes think, how would I feel if I was in that position?
That's right.
Because I've had times when I've been in serious debt. I've had times when I've been really sick, and you want some support.
Yeah.
So if we're walking straight past these people like they're not even there,
yeah,
what does that make us?
Yeah.
They're a human.
Yeah, that's right. And we don't know their story.
No.
I've had the privilege of talking to some of them because we run a homeless outreach on a Wednesday evening at St. Stephen's Church in Norwich. We're able to feed them and give them haircuts, give them dignity and all sorts of great things. But the reality is so many of them are in this situation. It's not their own doing. For others, maybe they have made poor choices. But our job isn't to judge people. Our job is to help people.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to judge. Jesus said, judge not. He said, don't point the finger. He said, that's not our job. Our job is to help people get back up. And so as a church, we really feel our role in this city, and we love Norwich. It's a great city. It's a fine city, is to get people back on their feet. And so, we run the supermarket, the homeless ministry, but we also help people in some of the poorest nations of the earth, like India and Pakistan and the Philippines, and we educate children, and we help them with dental hygiene and food. And as a church, the plate goes around on a Sunday, as most churches, and we're able to give a portion of that to those in desperate need around the world. I've been to every single one of the nations we support, and the need is so great. And you might say, well, what good is that in so much need, especially in India with all the the millions of people living in shanties? Well, tell that to the child who's getting a dinner today.
Yeah.
Tell that to the child who's getting their teeth done. And so for me, it's like, we can't do everything, but we must do something. We have to do something.
Yeah.
And so if everybody just did something,
whether you're religious or not, just do something. Yeah.
Pull the religious aspect. If everybody did something, we could make a difference in our city and in our world. And it's taken our eyes off us. It's amazing. I always say, if you're going through, whether it's a mental health challenge, whether it's a situation, a financial situation, the best thing you can do is go and help someone in a worse off situation you're at, and you feel better.
Yeah, not from an ego or no post on Instagram or anything like that. Just do it.
It's not for the shot.
Yeah,
it's just to help someone get back on their feet.
That's powerful. Just a couple of questions that I like to ask all guests is that, are there any areas that you're actively working on personally to improve as a pastor, as a leader, as a man, to become more optimal?
Brilliant, great question. I'd love to be in better physical shape. I think that's a constant challenge, especially for men as we get older, or men and women, but I'm a man, so I'm understanding that challenge. I'm 45 in a few weeks. So it's constantly trying to stay on top. I kind of crash around 8 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reaching for the crisps and the chocolate. And it's like fruit pastels, orange fruit pastels. So physically, I'd like to take it up a level or two over the next few weeks, months, and years. I think secondly, it's just understanding people better, understanding people. The world is evolving. What worked now, the leadership model that worked 10 years ago, 20 years ago, doesn't necessarily work the same. So trying to understand how I can evolve better as a leader. How, there's an old saying that says everyone communicates, few connect. And there's a difference between communication and connection. And communication is, we're communicating right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm connecting with my audience. I'll find out if I get any messages. Someone might listen to me and go, that sounds good, and switch off, right? Or there could be a connection point where people go, actually, this is connecting, where my spirit connects with their spirit, my soul connects with their soul. So it's a difference between communication and connection. And so I want to go, as I go older, I've done a lot of communication like you have, Ollie, but I'm kind of more interested in connection than communication. I want to make sure I'm connecting with all the generations. So if you're 15, you're listening to this podcast, they're getting something from it. Or if you're in their 60s, they're going, yeah, I got something from that. So it's trying to understand the difference between connection and communication.
That's powerful. That's powerful. And the last one is that could be someone that we both know or someone that you feel would be a good guest for the podcast with a story to share.
Yeah, I looked at that. I thought long and hard. I think, often we think about superstars, big names. I've done this at Soul Church, bring in the big names, you bring in the big crowds. And, and I think it's good.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's good that we have people of influence on our podcast. I also think about it's good just to hear everyday people's stories. People that maybe you don't know their name. Maybe it's like someone who's maybe literally been on the edge. They were going to take their life. Yet something stopped them. I want to know what that something was. Was it a thought about their child? Maybe a child they hadn't even had. So for me, I'm always looking for the single mom who's raising 5 kids, who somehow manages to get through the day. Look, the guy who battled and beat cancer, or maybe he's battling cancer. So I think for me, I'm interested in everyday people who are just getting through life.
People can relate to that.
Because we can bring in superstars, and I've had a podcast and I've brought in, and I think we need to do that because they're inspirers.
Yeah.
But sometimes some people are so kind of out of that, it's like, I could never get to that level. But actually, there must be a whole load of single mums in Norwich going, I'm not sure I can get through this. But maybe there's a single mum out there who goes, actually, I want to share some tools with you to help you. Maybe there's a dad out there who lost their kids.
Yeah.
And they're just so lonely, yet they somehow managed to keep going. I think we need to get some of the unsung heroes in the chair.
Yeah, I've got a couple of names, but I'll speak to you afterwards about them.
Yeah.
I don't want to say this, and then people think, they've got a lot of stuff going on, but we all have it at times. So I really, really appreciate you because, as you say, you have got a lot of stuff going on. Thank you for taking the
Ollie,
time.
thank you.
And how can people get involved with Soul Church if they want to just go along? I would say come and see you on social media, but how can they get involved with Soul Church if they want to come along, or if they want to volunteer, or just see what it's all about?
Exactly what you just said. Pop along. And maybe you don't feel comfortable to walk in the building at the moment. We get that. Visit online. YouTube. Come on YouTube. We're live every Sunday at 11 a.m. You could hit subscribe and then it'll just pop up on your smartphone or your tablet.